Hi, I wanted to talk to you about the data drawing project that we're going to be starting this week. I briefly introduced it to you yesterday by looking at a short video describing the process of the artists that created this project. So I just wanted to go through the slides with you, explain the process, and then I'm going to do my own drawing with you. So first, make sure that you actually did watch the video on Georgia Lupi talking about her process. I know yesterday Schoology was acting weird and Edpuzzle was acting weird. I think the whole world was sort of imploding because everyone's doing virtual learning right now. So it's crazy times, but we're going to make do, right? So um, if you're in Art 1, you can click on this link here. If you're in Funds here, and if those didn't work for you, you couldn't get through, I did create a Google form as a backup here for you, so you could watch that if that didn't work for you. Okay, so for this week, we're going to focus on one, collecting our data for a larger, more complex drawing that tells a more in-depth story about us, about our week this week. Okay, it's a crazy week. There's lots of things happening in the world right now that are affecting us. We're all sort of trapped inside of our homes, right? So we're all dealing with new routines, new expectations, new stressors, struggles. Okay, so we're all, dealing with new things this week. So let's take a minute and sort of reflect on what that's doing to us and how that makes us feel and how we're dealing with the situation, how we're coping. It's one of the most important things that artists can do is sort of reflect and tell stories about current events, right? Um, so this week we're collecting data to make that second drawing. Um, this week we're going to use some symbols and some general ideas about who we are to create sort of a mini self-portrait. Okay, so that's what you guys are going to do today. Today is Tuesday. Well, today is technically Monday. I'm recording this Monday, but it's for Tuesday. So this is a project. I would encourage you guys to take a look at the website. There's some really interesting images and explanations of the process. So it was a year-long analog. For those of you that don't know what that means, it's not digital. It's like analog music would be a record, a vinyl record versus an MP3. Okay, so instead of us sending emails and typing really quickly or a video chat, which we're doing now, it was like old school mail, so real postcards being sent across the ocean. So they came up with their own symbols, right? They had their own way of drawing it. So this was a week of clocks, right? So one individual chose to do this sort of arrow looking composition. Here it's sort of more like lined up like almost like a graph. But the idea is we're taking this data and we're making it prettier, right? Instead of looking at a pie chart or a bar graph or something like that, we're making it prettier. And then on the back it has the key. What do those symbols mean? Okay, and if we were to maybe take this another step further, maybe pair up with another student, because we're not seeing our friends every day, right now. So what if you paired up with one of your friends and you decided to study, how often you looked at a clock this week, right? How often you checked your phone, how often you checked, oh, how many steps do I have? Oh, 2. Um, how often are you looking at that clock, and how would you represent that data, and what would be those important like factors? Like, I looked at it because I was hungry, I looked at it because I was tired, I looked at it because I was bored. What are those factors that tell the story about you, right? So there's just some really pretty drawings of how that data gets transferred into a piece of artwork. Okay, so I would encourage you guys to take a look at this site on your own, find some things that you think are interesting, and these are just simple, it's like postcard size cardstock, and you can see it's like colored pens, maybe some marker, maybe some colored pencils, so simple art supplies that hopefully you guys have access to at home. But you can make this work with pretty much anything. You can even use old coffee if you want as paint. Black coffee. I wouldn't do it with if it had milk and sugar in it. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so for today, what you're going to do is grab a regular piece of paper, um, something just from your printer, whatever you got, okay? Whatever you have in terms of colored pencils, crayons, markers, colored pens, like if you have those fun inky pens and all the different colors, whatever you have will work. Highlighters, anything, okay? So the idea is we want to change the way that we are thinking about data. So it's not just facts and numbers, because as we saw in her talk yesterday, sometimes those facts and numbers can be misleading. Even if you look at the news today of what's going on, it's like everyone is talking about, deaths, but is anyone talking about, well, look at all the people that did recover, right? And then, well, are the numbers increasing because more people are being tested versus when people weren't being tested yet? So there's all these things going on in current events right now, today, in this crazy situation we're in. And how, depending on how you look at those facts and numbers, how might they tell a different story depending on where you're getting that information from, depending on your perception. So, so we're going to create a perspective on the person that you are using some data. Okay, so we're going to think beyond bar graphs, like I said, in timelines, and we're going to turn these numbers into a story. Okay, so it's, as she says, a great way to begin reclaiming and recycling your personal information, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's like a selfie, right? But it's made out of data points rather than pixels. And you can still put a filter on it too if you want, right? Depending on what you decide to portray. So let's get started. So we are going to use these set numbers, these set items to include into our portrait. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this alongside as I'm explaining the slides. Okay, so first what we're going to do, actually let me get, so the first thing we're going to do is grab a piece of paper, and if you don't have a square piece of paper, you take this paper, we have the short edge here, right? We bring the one corner down. It's hard to do this in the air. Okay, so I have a regular sheet of printer paper. I'm going to take the short edge and fold it up to the top edge. This is the long edge here, and then just fold this back, and you'll get a square. Now, if you don't feel like doing this, that's fine. You don't have to do this in a square. It's just, and then I'm just going to cut this off, and then you can use this paper, or the scissors aren't that good, but that's okay. You can also just take this then and line it up on a new piece of paper, and either draw a line here or cut this, fold it back, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this back for now, and I'll trim it later. Okay, so now I've got let me actually go. Okay, so here's an example of what your final drawing might look like, but everyone's is going to be different depending on the different questions that we're asking. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Where were you born? What time do you normally go to bed? Okay. So first we're going to answer, how old are we? So you're going to draw little dots up the side of the paper for however many years old you are. So most of you are going to be, 15, 16, 17. And then where are you from? So you're going to pick the color of the continent that corresponds to where you were born. And you're going to draw a vertical line next to your age, and then pick the color that corresponds with where you currently live right now. So for some of you that might be the same. born in New Jersey, living in New Jersey, both my lines would be yellow. So the glass is half full, half empty. It's just a glass full of water, or a glass of water is a realist, right? So, obviously there's other ways to look at this too, and I thought that this one was kind of funny. So we have optimist, it's half full, pessimist, half empty, realist, it's a glass of water. Um, and then I liked the one with the artist. It's for my paint water. Okay, so anyway, you would draw either a triangle, a red triangle that's filled, if you're a optimist, half empty with stripes, and if you're a realist, a triangle but facing the other way with the stripes. Are you an early bird or a night owl? Unfortunately, right now I am both. Stay up all night, get up really early. Yikes. Your typical day, what time do you go to bed and what time do you wake up? So you're going to do yellow and black lines for that. Do you sing in the shower? Are you a dog or a cat person? How many pets do you have? And like the dots correspond to how many pets you have. I know certain people, one of my students last year, he had like a whole menagerie of animals in his house. So, and it's the same thing for our next project next week. It's like, how many hours did you spend on social media? So like each dot will represent how many hours, right? If you have an iPhone or an Android, where do you keep your phone at night? Do you prefer pencil or pen when you're writing? So just draw a zigzag with your tool of choice. Are you an extrovert or an introvert? Right now we're all introverts. How do you spend your weekends? If you could bring your closest friends with you on vacation, how many people would you bring? Judging from your prom houses, like 50, right? Um, and money. If you found $100 on the street, would you save it, spend it, or give it away? So draw a line of dashes that matches the color of your choice. Okay, and it kind of tells you where to draw. So then when we share these out, we can kind of decipher these little fun tidbits and facts about our classmates. Okay? So just remember that data like us is imperfect. It's time to leave behind any presumption of absolute control and universal truth. Since we get our data from humans, it's riddled with human error and tainted by biases. We should embrace these imperfections just as we embrace imperfections in ourselves and others. These portraits are only the start of forming a new relationship with your data. Once you feel more connected to it, you'll see it differently. We must treat data as the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Okay? So when you guys are done with this little mini self-portrait, you can take a quick photo of it, post it to Artsonia, and I just want you to answer one question for your artist statement. What was the most surprising or interesting part of this process? So that's the process. Okay, so you're going to follow the instructions and do the best you can with whatever supplies you have at home. You might need to be creative, and if you have to kind of break the rules and use a different color because you just don't have, a blue marker at home, that's totally fine. Just make it look kind of cool. All right, and when you're all done, grab your phone, take a picture of it. So when you take a picture, make sure that it's nice and square. It's well lit. There's no shadows being cast on your image. And that way it looks really good for Artsonia. Then after you take the picture, post it to Artsonia and write your artist statement. Happy drawing! Okay, and of course, if you've got any questions, you can email me, although it's easier for me because I have the two little kids here with me. If you just send me a text or a message on Google Hangouts, much quicker. And also, Remind is pretty quick too because I get those alerts right on my phone, so it's much easier than me having to go check my email and all of that. Also, if you have really serious questions, we can do a little video chat and talk it out. Okay.